Hi, Sana. How are you?
I'm good. Good evening, everyone. First of all, nice to meet everyone here.
Yeah. So, good evening, all, and welcome all of you to the webinar series. And Sana, we're very pleased to have you here. Thank you for giving us this time. And I'm looking forward for this webinar. I'm pretty sure it'll be very insightful for the students joining here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored and excited for our conversation. So I can't wait.
Yeah, and also I'll be recording the session so that we can share it with a wider audience later.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. For the audience, I would like to introduce Sana to the audience. So, Sana had graduated from NYU Stern in 2023 with a BS in business, concentrating in management and data science, and minored in media, culture, and communication. During college, she gained diverse professional experience through multiple internships in the consulting and tech industry. Sana was also actively involved on campus, holding leadership positions in several clubs. Additionally, she served as a teaching fellow for both undergrad and MBA classes. Prior to college, Sana attended Sanskriti School in Delhi and middle school in Cambridge, Boston. She currently works as a business analyst at one of the largest sustainable energy firms in the US, focusing on nuclear energy. Outside of work, she enjoys traveling, playing basketball and tennis, attending concerts, and visiting art museums. So this is like introduction of Sana, and it's like amazing work she has done till now, and that's why I'm looking forward towards this conversation.
Absolutely.
So basically, I would start by giving you an overview how we would proceed in this webinar. So I'll be asking you questions based on these topics, and then we will open the platform for Q&A session. So first, I these are the topics. First is to tips to enhance your application for top colleges like NYU. So and second is maximizing school opportunities to boost your profile. Third, balancing academics, extracurriculars, and personal interests. Fourth, bridging businesses and data science, craft a versatile career path, storing career paths in sustainable energy. So I think I should start with questions now, and let's move to the questions. So first, I think I should we should start with your NYU experience. I think that will be really great. So first is, can you talk about your favorite academic experience or class at NYU, and how did it influence your career goals?
Yeah, for sure. So I've definitely taken a lot of interesting classes at NYU, and the beauty of NYU is that it really allows you to choose whatever classes you want to take. But I want to give a little bit of a context here for those who are not as familiar with how the curriculum works. So, in your first year at NYU, as a freshman, you come in, you spend your time completing your gen ed classes. So, these are your econ classes, statistics, calculus, your reading and writing classes. So these are kind of like your foundational classes that you will build on throughout your time in college. In your sophomore year, which is your second year, students they come in into Stern and they complete the business core curriculum. And this is your finance classes, your accounting classes, your marketing, business leadership classes. So those sort of things. So your first 2 years at NYU are basically spent building a foundation for the second half of your degree. And in your junior and senior years, which are your second half of your degree, you get to really play around with your degree and you can mold it to be what you want it to be. So you get to pick your concentrations that you want to do. You can add a minor, you can double major. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with your degree in the second half. The only condition is that you have to declare your concentrations by the end of your junior year. So that I think is key here. A lot of students will spend a lot of time taking different classes and different coursework up until junior year so that they can finally decide what concentration they want to pursue. But the unique thing about Stern is that it's known for its finance concentration. Being in the heart of New York City, you're close to Wall Street. There's a lot of investment banks around in the area. So there's a huge focus on finance, and a lot of students that come into freshmen at Stern, they want to aspire to be, doing the finance concentration and pursue a career in finance eventually. And I was no different. I came in, I I also wanted to do the finance concentration. I thought, okay, I'm going to go and become an investment banker at a JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley. And that was kind of my end goal, so to say. But the more I explored coursework outside of finance, I realized that I have more things to explore, and I find myself more intellectually stimulated by some of my management coursework instead of the finance coursework. So I decided, I'm going to take as many classes as I can before I have to declare, and make a decision based on that. And I was still kind of like 50-50 on switching out of finance versus staying in finance. But I had one specific class that I remember is like an inflection point in my journey. It was a class called Global Strategy, and I took that in my junior year, and I found that the class was so interesting to me. I was really engaged with the material. I found it very relevant. I enjoyed doing all my readings and my assignments. I actually was like really excited to go to class every week. So I would, stay after class, talk to my professor about, the research that she was doing, or if I had questions, I would ask her, or if I'd read something in the news, I would want her opinion on it. So I found myself being way more engaged with that one class and feeling a lot more passionate about that material than I did for all of my other finance classes that I'd taken so far. And that was kind of like a light bulb moment. I realized that I'm more passionate about something else, and you don't always have to, follow what everybody else is doing. That's the beauty of going to college abroad. You can really pick and choose what you want to do, what you want to study, because there's opportunities for everything. So I ended up actually TAing for that specific class. So not only for the undergraduate level, but also at the MBA level. So it's just incredible. I got to sit in the MBA lectures for the same class and kind of audit them, and it was mind-blowing. So I was 100% sure at that point that I would convert from finance to management. But on an academic level, if I had to kind of explain that, I would say global strategy sits at the intersection of business strategy, finance, management, geopolitics, and economic policy. So it's a very multidisciplinary subject and field of study. And that's something I realized I wanted to pursue in my future career as well. I wanted that element of multidisciplinary subject matter to be present, because without that, I wouldn't have felt as passionate or as engaged with the work that I would be doing. So that's a long-winded way of saying that the courses you take in college can completely change the trajectory of your future goals, your future career paths. That's the point of college. You have to explore, you have to try different things. And that's what institutions like NYU and other top colleges will allow you the freedom to do that exploration. And you can mold your degree to be what you want it to be. There's no limit on how abstract or diverse you want your education to be. So that's definitely one of my most favorite academic experiences at NYU, and definitely influenced what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's like really interesting. Like the flexibility US provides, it's really important for your career. Then you can really decide it for further career. Right? Yeah, that was really interesting. Yeah, let's move to the another question. So, what motivated you to pursue a career in sustainable energy? And were there specific courses or experiences at NYU Stern that influenced your decision? Like now you're pursuing sustainable energy. So that's good.
Absolutely. So it's actually really interesting. I'd always been passionate about sustainability. And as you know, even in school in Delhi, we grew up learning about the UN Sustainable Development Goals and climate change. And even at business school, there's a lot of conversation around ESG, which is environmental social governance. It's a business framework that companies use to, ensure that they're doing business in an ethical and sustainable way. There's corporate social responsibility, there's sustainable finance. So there's a lot of chatter around sustainability as a whole, as a concept. And so it was always in the back of my mind. But when I was recruiting for my senior year, full-time job in senior year, I was pretty agnostic to the industry that I wanted the role to be in, as long as it was consulting or analytical roles. Like I was open to whether it was financial services, healthcare, tech. I wasn't focused on energy as a industry. But I had coffee chatted someone at McKinsey. Their name is Mr. Siddharth Tewatia. He's now a very dear mentor of mine. He was the first person to actually give me the advice, and he said you should think of pursuing careers in the sustainability space because it's a rising industry. It's going to experience a boom if it already isn't, and it's where a lot of focus and energy of businesses is going and shifting towards, but not just from like a climate advocacy perspective, but also from a business and financial perspective. There's a lot of dollar value that's being put into sustainable businesses. And he was the first person to kind of, slightly push me in that direction. But my opportunity at Constellation Energy, which is the firm I work at currently, it was kind of destiny almost. When I got the interview call, I had no background in energy whatsoever. So I was a little bit worried about the interview. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to go through all of this other subject material that I haven't actually prepared. And it just so happened that in that semester, I was taking my natural science degree requirement class, and it was a class called Energy and the Environment. So I actually ended up asking my professor to help me prep for that interview. So to answer your question, it wasn't in my plan from the start, but things just sort of fell into place. And I can't be more happy because this industry is experiencing such a major boom and it'll continue to grow. And I feel like I ended up at the right time, at the right place at the right time. And so it's very like fated almost in a way. So I feel very grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nice. That's like really interesting. Okay, now I think we'll move towards like application process, like which will be really helpful from your side to the students. So for international students, what specific elements should they focus on to enhance their application to top US schools? How can students tailor their application specifically for NYU or other top colleges? And what unique qualities does NYU look for in applicants?
Yeah, that's a big one. I'm gonna break that up into two parts.
Yeah.
To answer the first part, what specific elements that you should focus on? Number one is your academics. It doesn't matter what extracurriculars you have. If your academic performance is not strong or up to par, they're not even going to look at the rest of your application. So number one focus should be academics. And it's important that you convince the admissions committee that you're someone who's going to be able to handle the pressures, the academic pressures that come with being in an academically rigorous and challenging environment. So you have to convince the admissions committee just based on your transcripts and your scores itself. So number one priority that people tend to overlook sometimes is academics. Number two is your standardized tests. Now, these are your SATs, your ACTs, your IELTS. And this is pretty self-explanatory. Like along with your grades, you have to also get the target score for the school that you wish to apply to. Although I will say a lot of American universities now are rethinking the standardized test concept in itself. They're wondering if it's as effective as they initially thought it was. But what that's done is that a lot of schools have now become test score optional. And so you can choose to apply with the test score just for those specific schools, or you can omit your test scores. But there's a catch. All the test score optional schools will weigh your transcripts way more strictly than they would if they were looking at it along with your SAT scores. So it's like a combination, right? So if your transcript and grades and you're applying with both of those, it's a more holistic approach in the way they're looking at your application. But if you're choosing to omit the SAT and you're only applying with your transcript, that's going to be viewed more strictly. So I would just keep that in mind. It's something that you can, strategically decide depending on what school you're applying to. And I'm sure your admissions counselors can help you with that. So that's the number two most important thing. Number three is extracurriculars. It's not number one. It's not number two. Number three is extracurriculars. And this can be anything from a sport, art form. It could be music, dance, painting, Model UN, debate, or an entrepreneurial venture. So it can be anything. The key is that you have to do it at a high level. You have to excel at it. And you have to make sure that it's something that stays true to who you are and is relevant to your story and helps you stand out from the crowd. So, you can't just be doing random things. It should be relevant to your experience, to your lived experiences, to how you've been in school, or some things that influenced you in your childhood. So it has to have that element of relevancy to your story, and that's unique for everybody. That said, the more competitive a school is, the higher the acceptance rate, the more there's an expectation that you have exceeded at this extracurricular at a high level. And that is to show that you have a competitive edge, that you are able to perform in competitive spaces. And so I'll give you an example. Tennis was one of my extracurriculars that I had, chosen. And I'd been playing tennis since I was 5 years old. So I've a history, a relevancy to my story with that sport. At the same time, I worked hard and I also performed at the national level. So you have to have not only the relevancy to your story, but also the excellence at a high level for it to be important, part of your extracurriculars. And the last thing I'll say, and I think we're going to talk about essays a little bit later, but essays are important because they can be the final decision maker on whether school will admit you or not. Your essays, they have to show who you are. It's the one place where you can show your personality. You have to also show them that you've done your research on the school, the faculty, the program, the career opportunities after you graduate, the clubs and societies on campus, even the city. So your essays should reflect not only your passion to study this thing, but to show to the university that, yes, this is something that I'm really interested in, and I can only do it at your university. And that is an important, those 2 points are really important to have in your essays. And, the admissions committee, they're not stupid. They can tell when something is real, something is authentic. They can tell when something's made up. So I know there's, people are extremely worried about what should I write in my essays, but it's really just telling your story and, giving it that authentic flavor that is only going to be unique to you. No one else can replicate that for you. No one else can write that for you. So essays are really important. They have to be a good balance between emotional and raw, as well as strategic and well-researched. That said, to the second part of your question, if you want to talk about NYU, for example, I would say think very deeply about the identity of that school. So for NYU, its main core identity is that it's based in the heart of New York City. And it's not going to be like a college town experience at all. It's like not a traditional college experience. You're 18 years old, you're coming into the big city, and there's a whole world of opportunities in front of you. And you have to reflect that you're passionate about that. My essays, I think, really reflected that I craved that energy of the city. And that I knew that this is something that I can only find at NYU. No other school can give me this experience. So that, and then also knowing that if you're applying to like a specific school within a university like Stern is known for finance. So New York City has a huge fintech landscape. It's really booming. So I wrote about how I wanted to explore that. Like I said, I came into Stern thinking I'd do finance. It's a different thing that I've done something different out of that experience, but my initial pull to Stern was how advanced it was in its fintech program. So you have to kind of know the school almost better than the admissions council knows itself, and to show that you've done your research.
Yes. So basically, coming back to your extracurricular point, so you're saying that rather than focusing on quantity of your extracurricular activities, you should focus on quality of your extracurricular activity, right?
That is true. Quality over quantity for sure, but don't just do one. I think you have to show that you can do a sport, but you can also, like I did Model UN or I did debate.
Yeah.
or I did music and singing. So you can show like with one or two, maybe three at most,
Yeah.
that you can show that you're a multidimensional person, that you have varied interests, and you've performed at high levels in all of those extracurriculars. So I wouldn't say focus all your energy on that. There's other more important things that make your application, but
Yeah.
it's just something you do organically. Like it's just like tennis, I've been playing since I was 5. So it was very organic, and it wasn't forced. Music, I started singing when I was in 4th grade. So it's something, some things have just stayed with you for a very long time. So it's easy to integrate them into your application.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the next question is also related to college application only. So, you know that it is very important to create a balanced list of school, which will align with your student academics, personal, and professional goals. So, what key attributes would you suggest students to prioritize when selecting colleges to apply?
I think so. There's a 4 C's principle:
Yeah.
career, course, college, and campus. So, career, I mean, you have to think of it like a backward planning. What do I want to be doing? What school can I take for that? What courses should I take for that? What is the right university to go for that? So, I want to say start by thinking of career first. And it is hard. You're 17, 18 years old, you're very young, so it's hard to decide what you want to end up doing in your future. But I think it's just, simply thinking of careers that you're aligned towards or you would want to pursue. You don't have to have an exact answer at 16 years old, but you should know that, okay, I don't want to be a doctor, or I at least don't want to be an engineer, or whatever it is that you can absolutely rule out. And I say this because this is a big learning for me. You want to go to a school that is a target school for that chosen career. So for investment banking, Stern was a target school. And what a target school does is that you get more opportunities to interact with companies when they come to campus. You get more exposure to professionals who will come to campus and speak about their experiences in the workforce. And there's just more recruiting events, there's more info sessions. A target school basically means these companies are going to target this particular school when they're hiring. And so you want to be at that target school for your chosen profession or your chosen career choice. So for me, with the whole finance story and investment banking being, the top career choice out of finance, Stern was the perfect choice because it's a target school for investment banking. So that's why I say think of career first. There's a lot of benefits of being at a target school as opposed to being at a non-target school. So career first. Second is course. So this is the most important thing about your application. The major or the degree that you're applying for, it's going to determine what you end up doing with it in the future. So don't pick a program because someone forced you to pick a program or someone, there's a pressure. This is, it's very academically rigorous. So you can't force yourself to study, and you can't force yourself to like the material. So you really have to pick something that you're passionate about and something you actually want to study, something you'll actually put in the work into. So in addition to that, I would also say degree is important. There's a difference between a BA and a BS. If you pursue a BS in a STEM field, you are likely to qualify for a STEM OPT extension, which is essentially allowing you to stay for 3 years after graduation to pursue a work opportunity in the US. So if that's your goal, then you want to work in the US, you will probably want to do a STEM degree because you will get that extra 2 years as opposed to the 1 year that everyone else gets. So course is also important. And college, I would say, represents a tier ranked list of schools that are well known for your program. Now, Harvard is good at many things, but what is Harvard known for? Harvard College is known for its liberal arts program. So you want to think of it that way. Like, what am I studying? What is the best school for that? And that can be your dream school or your number one choice. And then you make a tier ranked list of, okay, there's some schools that are reach, but you can get in, some are dream, and then some are your safety schools. So you want to build your list that way. And lastly, like I said, campus or country or city, I basically location is what I mean with that one. It's I loved my experience at NYU because it was a city school, and that's what I wanted. I didn't have a traditional college experience. So if you're someone who wants an all-American classic college experience with the sports and the frats and everything, maybe NYU won't be the right fit for you. It's a great school, but it won't be the right fit for you. If
Yeah.
you aren't, if you don't want to go to a big city, maybe that is not, NYU won't be the right fit. But if you want to be in a city school, then maybe looking at, colleges in middle America, which are college towns, maybe that's not the right fit for you. So I would say focus on career, course, college, and campus. Those are my 4 C's of what you should focus on.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect answer. Like students are really looking for this answer, and they're always they're always confused about the college. And I think these 4 C's will really, really help them. I have heard this for the first time, like 4 C's answer. Yeah. Like moving to the next question. So next two questions are based on essays.
Mm-hmm.
So although you've covered the essay part, but if you want to add more to it, then you can add to it. Like it's basically how did you approach your essay and your storytelling. So we can go about that way. So if you want to add there, then you can add that way.
Yeah, I mean, we did speak briefly about this earlier. I wrote about the NYU experience of being in a city, and then also Stern's strong finance and fintech landscape, as well as, the clubs that were on campus. I'd actually done research on the kind of research the professors were doing, what they're working on. So that to show that I'm really engaged with the material that they're going to teach, and, stuff that's just what interested me. So I definitely wrote about that. But I also wrote about like my journey of getting to that point of wanting to go to Stern. And I had initially, written about I actually wanted to become an architect. And I had quite a change of heart in high school, and, sort of shifted my journey and landed on business and fintech as being what I wanted to do at the time. So you have to write about those curves that you take along your journey, because not everyone's going to have a linear path. And sometimes linear paths to colleges, it doesn't, interest them. They want people who have different thought processes, different experiences. And if you feel like, oh my God, I wanted to do something, but I ended up doing something completely different, don't worry about it. It's totally fine. Colleges want to hear your story. They want to hear your thought process behind what made you change from A to B. So I wrote about that as well. So it was kind of like a marriage between your research and like being authentic and raw, like I said.
And sometimes colleges, they ask about your low scores or gap year. So when they ask you about your low scores, so what do
Mhm.
you suggest that how should a student approach that answer?
I think it's important that a failure, so to say, or a setback be
Yeah,
acknowledged.
yeah,
And there's nothing wrong with it. We're not perfect human beings, and colleges understand that. We're multidimensional people, and there will be lows and there will be highs. But what you have to show is that how you grew from that experience. What did you learn from that experience? What are you going to do in the future that will change the outcome if that were to happen again? So what you have learned from that can definitely, speak volumes for what a bad experience was, or like a failure or a setback. So definitely talk about, how you have grown from that experience. And there's no shame in like having a bad grade every now and then. It's fine. We're just kids. When we're in high school, you can have a bad day for an exam. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just be authentic and tell them how you've improved and what you learned from that experience.
So moving on to the next question. This is specifically to Common App. So how should student proceed? How should students select and prioritize their activities in Common App activities section to strengthen their application? Like it's very important to fill these activities, and they're very confused at what kind of activities they should fill.
I think, like I said, it's unique to everyone, but as a general rule, I would put the activity where you have the highest level of achievement first. That, speaks for itself. And then everything else, you can kind of rank them based on interest. You can rank them based on relevance to the degree program. You can rank them based on personal preference even. So it's showing that you've done all these things, what stands out the most, what represents you the most. So in my case, let's say it was tennis, or in someone else's case, it'll be music. Like I know in Chaitanya's case, it was his music album that he produced. So there's a lot of different things that you can write about, but whatever is your highest achievement should go first, because that grabs the attention.
Okay, let's move to the next question. Okay, when did you start building your profile, and how important do you think it is to start early? What approach did you take to build your profile, and what direction did you focus on?
Profile building is important, I think, but not before ninth grade. It doesn't matter what you're doing in middle school, elementary, have fun, explore, enjoy. Don't worry about all of these things at that age. When you're in ninth grade, you can start thinking about, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. The first step is making a decision on whether you want to study abroad or not. Because I know a lot of students who aren't able to finalize and lock in on this decision until, it's 11th grade or 12th grade even. And I would suggest it's important to show, if you want to show your organic growth, your authentic journey in your application, try to make that decision by 9th or 10th grade. I think it'll be very beneficial. So I started building my profile from the 9th grade. Colleges don't want to see what you did in middle school. They want to see what you did in high school. So in 9th and 10th grade, I focused a lot on building up my extracurriculars and maintained my high grades. So like your high grades are it's like the baseline. You always have to have good grades. And then anything else you're doing is on top of that. So in 9th and 10th grade, a lot of my focus was on extracurriculars. But in 11th grade, I shifted that focus, and I focused more on academics. I was a science student. So if anybody here who's done CBSE, they know that from 10th grade to 11th grade, and if you're taking science, it's a huge jump. It's a huge change of what you've been used to so far from studying. So I focused most of my time on academics and eased up the extracurriculars a little bit. But at the same time, I took some leadership positions in school. So it was like a healthy balance, but most of my time was spent with academics. And in the first half of 12th grade, I shifted again. First half of 12th grade, my entire focus was on college apps, essays, getting the last bits of extracurricular activity that I needed, the last pieces to the puzzle, essentially, was the first half of 12th grade. But as soon as it was the second half of 12th grade and I'd finished applying to colleges, immediately my focus shifted to 100% academics. Getting the grades I needed in the board exams was the most important thing. So I would say that, you have to keep adjusting the situation. Extracurriculars, academics, you have to kind of fine tune that balance as you move through high school. And while you're doing that, you will have original stories to tell, conflict stories, conflict resolution stories, or leadership stories, challenges that you face. Those are all essay questions that come up on the Common App. And with those experiences, you can write from what you've really, gone through in real life and write about those in your essays. But profile building, like I said, it shouldn't give you too much stress. It's if you, like I said, if you do an extracurricular, keep doing it. And if you're in leadership positions in school, write about that. It's not something that you have to focus extra energy on. It should be something that you're just doing as part of school, and then obviously there's a few elements here and there that are more intentional than others. But it should be a very organic, authentic process, and it shouldn't give you too much stress.
Yeah. Moving on to the next question. So this is basically SAT preparation. We talked about it. So I know it's very difficult to manage your academics and SAT and extracurricular at the same time. So did you encounter any difficulties along the way, and what advice would you give the students currently preparing for SAT to help them avoid common challenges?
I took group coaching for SAT, but I didn't find them quite effective. It could just be the coaching center that I had chosen, or maybe that was just how the general, SAT coaching methodology was. But I found it better to do practice tests on my own, timed practice tests. SAT is more about managing your time than it is about solving every question correctly. You need to have a strategy when you
Mm.
solve the SAT. So don't worry about not knowing the concept or the material being too difficult. It's not. It's not meant to be difficult. It's very straightforward. They just twist the way the question is asked. And if you don't know this, but SAT and ACTs are not written by, well, they are definitely written by high school teachers in the US, but it's also written by psychologists who want to write the question in a difficult language, and they want to understand if you are able to comprehend what's being asked. And this is specifically for the math questions. So it's more of like a mind game that they're playing with you. It's they want to show you a question that so you feel like is so difficult because it's worded differently than you're used to, and that'll throw you off and you lose time. So you don't have to worry about the material. You know the material. If you're someone who's studying math in 11th and 12th grade, it's a piece of cake. You can easily do it. It's more about strategic time management with your paper. So do a lot of time practice tests, and then you can kind of see how you've done better over time. So that would be my advice on the SAT.
And just follow-up question, what is your opinion on super score? Like, how will like admission committee would take it if we put super score on our common app?
That one, again, it's like so specific to every case. I mean, if you feel like you can do better, I would say go for it. But if you've achieved your score, your target score, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Get it. Yeah. Let's move to another question. Okay, this is basically about your career, so that students would be, very much motivated by your career. Then if they're interested in business and data science, it's like very much evolving career today. So it's basically that. How did you choose to combine business with data science during your studies at NYU Stern? I think you answered this question initially only, and that one inspired you to pursue this intersection.
Quite simply, there's data science in everything. Everything is data. Businesses only look at metrics and data these days. If they're making a decision, they want to know the metrics and the data behind it. So I found that it was absolutely imperative for me to study data science if I was studying business, because it allows me to make data-driven decisions. And it also gave me an added edge in the job market at the time, because everyone I spoke to was like, do you have a data science minor? Do you have a data science concentration? Like, they wanted students who were studying data science. And that's a pattern that's continuing. Even in the future, in the next 5, 10, 15 years, they're going to want students who are analytically driven. So I added a double concentration. With my management concentration, I added data science to it. And interestingly, the data science concentration at Stern qualifies as a STEM field. So it allowed me to get my STEM OPT as well. So that's, I think, something that's very beneficial. So like I said, data science is in everything. And it's kind of like businesses can't function without data science anymore. And especially like predictive analytics and AI and algorithms in the world that we live in, data science is becoming extremely important.
Let's move to the other question. So what are some of the most promising career paths for students who graduate with a business major and data science minor?
The world is full of opportunities for data science majors. I think, like I said, they're required in every field, every industry, whether it's tech, healthcare, financial services, real estate, energy, everywhere they need. Every business of any kind needs data scientists. So you could go into consulting, you can go into banking, you can go into marketing, product management, you can become a business analyst, a financial analyst, a data analyst. So there's almost every career that is on the table. It's because that the skills you're learning while studying data science are extremely transferable to other careers and other industries and can be used everywhere. So there's no limit to the kind of careers you can pursue with a data science concentration or major.
Okay, nice. Let's move to another question. So what advice would you give students building their profile for business degree? Would you recommend starting a business-related passion project, and how could it benefit their college application and future career? Because, passion projects are like really a thing nowadays. and people are really building their passion projects since like ninth grade, so that they can reach to the call. Like you said, it should be very organic.
Yeah.
So what kind of projects do you suggest them?
So I think it's important to ask yourself why you want to pursue a business degree. And I always say this, business school will not teach you to be an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneurial person and you're building a business from a young age, highly likely that you don't need a business degree to succeed in that. Some of the biggest business people in the world, they aren't, they may either dropped out of college or they don't have business backgrounds. So if you're passionate about entrepreneurship, and that's something that you want to do, and that's your passion project, I don't know if a business degree is the right answer for you. And so it's important to evaluate why you want to pursue a business degree. That said, if it is something that you are passionate about and you still want to go to business school, I think it can be beneficial, as highly beneficial, as long as you're able to articulate why you're passionate about it and how a business school degree will help you grow that business or help you grow your passion project. So I would, definitely ask yourself the question of why it is you want to pursue a business degree and whether your entrepreneurial venture or your passion project is relevant to getting that degree. And it's kind of like a two-way question. Like the answer can be yes, the answer can be no, but it's for the student to find out if that, is the right thing for them or not. And I wouldn't say spend all this time building your passion project and then abandon it once you get into college, because then that's not a passion project. That's something you're doing to get into college. Those are serving two different purposes, but you have to understand what it is that you want that passion project to do for you.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So how do you see the role of data science evolving in the business world over the next 5-10 years? And what can students do now to prepare for those changes? I think it's a follow-up of the previous question.
It's the future of data science lies in AI and Gen AI. We've heard it everywhere. I mean, even me sitting in our all hands meetings at work, all they're talking about is AI. All Meta's talking about, all the tech companies, they're all talking about AI. So data science is already at the core of every business decision that companies are making. But with the advent of Gen AI, it's going to become even more important. So, data is being constantly collected everywhere. We're refining our algorithms. That's going to become machine learning soon. It's being automated now. So, and predictive analytics will continue to be a reason, for companies' decision making. So I would say that data science and AI are going to be like a happy marriage in the future. And to prepare for that, because it's going to be inevitable, there's AI in every aspect of our lives now. Even at work, like I use Copilot for writing emails. Like it's simple as that. So it's going to be everywhere. And they're collecting a lot of data from that AI that they're training right now, those training models. And that data then needs to get analyzed. So that's your future of data science and AI in the next 5 or 10 years. And to prepare for it, I think students need to have an appetite and an understanding of Gen AI and what it does, what it is. Take some courses on edX, take some courses on Coursera, just basic level understanding on what AI is, what Gen AI is, what data science is, how those two are connected. I would even say if there's some students who are more inclined towards programming, they can start learning Python, they can start, other softwares like Tableau is more for data visualization, but you can use R, there's SQL, there's so many other languages and softwares that you can start learning at a younger age if that's your inclination. I would say Python at least is handy for every career. I took Python classes when I was in college. I took programming classes as well in college. So that is something I would suggest everybody to do, irrespective of whether you're a psych major, whether you're a business major, or whether you're an econ major. Everyone should learn Python. I would say, start preparing that way.
So you would recommend Coursera courses to the students if they want to pursue this further, right?
Absolutely. Just to get a flavor of what's coming in the future. Because Gen AI, there's such a huge vocabulary of terms and concepts that the layman doesn't even understand when it comes to AI. And if you take those courses, you can show to the not only to the colleges that you are a little bit well versed in that terminology, but also that you are passionate about this, you are interested in this, and at the same time, you're building your own knowledge, you're building your own foundation for what's to come in the future.
Nice. Great. So, how important were internships and networking in shaping your career in sustainable energy? And what types of internships should a student consider during college? Like after they've selected and now they're in college, they would know this.
I think, like I said, I had no background in energy before I landed my full-time job in the sector. My internships in college were mostly consulting and tech internships. So but there's still a lot of transferable skills, that you can use in those internships. I think it's not important where you intern in college in the initial years. In your freshman year, in your sophomore year, it doesn't matter where you intern, what you intern, as long as you were able to learn something valuable from that experience. That's the key there. You want to try different companies, startups, try different, business models, smaller companies, medium-sized companies, different industries. So explore as much, same concept, explore as much as you can in the beginning. And then your junior internship is really important. Your junior internship, the bigger the brand name, the better it is on your resume. It could be consulting, investment banking, wealth management, asset management, software engineering, whatever it is. That junior internship is very important because it plays a big role when you apply for a full-time job. You can either get hired at the same company, or you can, show what you learned from that experience and, talk about that in your full-time interview. So that said, I think most important thing is coffee chatting people in different industries, different different companies. That's your network. You try and network with as many people as you can before you actually land somewhere, because you're just one person. Your degree is just one aspect of you. It's what your connection and your network can do for you and vouch for you to others. That's how you get a job in the US. It's not, it is based on meritocracy, but at the same time, it's also who knows who, and you want to build those connections early on. And so I was very fortunate that I heard about Constellation through a professional mentor of mine. And that's how they got me an interview. They put in a referral for me, and that's how I got an interview at Constellation. And referrals are the absolute basic common way of interviewing in the US, whether it's for internships or full-time jobs. They get 1 billion applications on a daily basis. If you have a referral, you are likely to get screened in that application process. So networking is important for getting those internship and job referrals. And yeah, I think, the same even in MBAs, they're also doing the same thing. Their MBA internships are important. And in undergrad, your junior internship is the most important thing. So explore while you can. And then when you have to do your internships, like your junior internships and your MBA internships, those are the two most important internships in your time.
Okay, let's move to another question. And this is the last question. And any final advice or tips would you like to offer our audience on navigating the college application process?
I think I've spoken a lot, but I think the key here is that it shouldn't be a daunting process. And if it is, just take a step back. Your mental health is important. You should have a strong support system around you. I think my biggest blessing has been my parents supporting me along every step of the way. I think I owe it to them. I really owe it to them. This is where I am right now, but it's all thanks to the hard work that they've put in alongside me and supporting me and getting me all the resources that I needed. And so I really owe it to them. So I had my support system. I had my parents. I had, obviously my friends in school, my best friends in school were also, going through the similar process. So in terms of managing my mental health in that process, it can be stressful, yes, but you should have your support system and your methods of coping with that stress in place. So that's important. And then at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, everyone will get into college somewhere. I used to joke around with my friends, and we would say, oh, I hope we get into college. Like, oh no, we're not getting into college. Like, everyone is getting into college. We're all smart people here. And we'll make something of our lives, and just having a positive outlook like that is very important. So those are my tips to leave with.
Yeah, I completely agree. Parents' role is really important here. It's because considering the hectic nature of school, it is really.
Also, just the financial support. Like,
that's like basically.
I've been able to do this without them. Like, jokes aside, this is I really owe it to them, and they allowed me to do that. They allowed me the space to dream. They allowed me the space, the choice to do whatever I want. And then we're like, okay, we're going to back you up on this. So they've had a huge role to play, and they introduced me to some incredible people, some of whom are all on this call. Ved Prakash uncle is here, Sanjay sir. Like, I've been introduced to such wonderful humans because of them, through them, that have also given me a lot of advice and counseling and mentorship and guidance that I really cherish.
Yeah, great. So before we move to the Q&A session, so this is basically for our audience, that if they can get a 15-minute free consultation with our counselors, so that they can track their preparation and their application process where they are. Because in our consulting services, we provide personalized guidance for college admission, career planning, and academic advancements. So now I think next is like, I've opened the platform for the question, and anyone can pitch in and ask the question.
I think there's questions in the chat.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's one question. Where do you want to see yourself in 10 years from hence? That's a great question. I think that's a really hard question. I think I hope to have done my MBA by then. I hope to be in a stable place in my career. I also, it has me stumped. 10 years from now seems far away. There's things I want to have accomplished by then. MBA is obviously one of them. And I think I hope that I view success in a healthy way 10 years down the line. And my perspective on success and material things stays the same as it is now. And I hope I'm not jaded by 10 years of corporate life, and I hope I still have a positive outlook on things. I think that would be my answer. That was a really good question.
So anyone can raise hand if they want to ask question. I mean, it's just open to ask question if anyone can. Yes, Neelam Kumari has raised a hand. Yeah.
So, ma'am, I want to ask one question. Like, you said that the common app. So, I'm really confused. Like, what is common app? Can you give me a little bit deep information about the app? I don't know what is common app and how I can use this.
Okay. Yeah. So the common app is a broad application that the U.S. universities use for admissions process. There are exceptions to this. The University of California schools, they have their own application system, but all other universities in the US, they have one common application. That's called the Common App. And they have sections in that about what extracurriculars you've done, what your grades and your transcripts are, your essays, you answer the essays in that. So it's one centralized system to apply to college in the US. I hope I answered that. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. But I also want to ask another question, like how I can make my resume in good way. Like I have made already my resume, but I also confused about like what I will put inside my resume.
So for if you don't mind me asking, are you still in high school or are you in college? Because those two things will look different. Are you applying for master's or undergrad?
Oh, right now I'm in high school, and I will apply
Okay,
undergraduate.
got it. So yeah, first for high school students in your resume, I would say you have to just highlight what things you've done so far, and that includes your academics, your grades that you've scored so far, your extracurricular activities that you've done, any leadership positions that you have, any volunteer experience that you have. You just have to highlight that. And resumes are usually just one page long, so you want to capture all of that information in one page. I think there's resources online where you can look for resume formats. The most common resume format is the Harvard resume format, so you can use that as a reference. There's templates online, and you can kind of follow those templates and add information that's relevant to you. So for high school students, I mean, obviously there's an work experience section that won't be relevant to high school students. You can replace that with extracurriculars, leadership, volunteer work, other online courses you've taken, that kind of thing.
Okay, got it, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Yeah. Your career choice and success story are incredibly inspiring and could motivate many students to pursue career in ESG sectors. Considering India's leading role in climate change mitigation, what job prospects do you foresee for this sector in India?
I think there's a huge scope for the energy sector in India. It is extremely I want to say it's in the early stages at the moment. There's a huge population, and a lot of our electricity and power consumption are still based on coal power plants. And the world is moving towards a decarbonized grid and carbon-free sources of energy. And so India has a lot of opportunity to move in that direction. So I think there's going to be careers in ESG and sustainable finance. If you want to go the corporate route, there's going to be careers in energy policy. There's going to be, Niti Aayog does a lot of energy policy work. The Ministry of the Energy Ministry and the Environment Ministry, they have policy think tanks that are also working on this. So there's a policy and climate advocacy perspective route that you can take. The corporate route you can take. If you're interested in business, there's a huge amount of business opportunity for energy related businesses in the country. Solar panels, wind farms. There's opportunity for a lot of climate related startups. So climate tech is becoming incredibly important around the world, but also in India. And we're seeing at the smaller level, there's a lot of climate tech startups that are trying to solve the climate issues at a local level, at smaller levels. And they're going to be hiring, whether it's engineers or data scientists or just analysts like me. So there's a ton of opportunity in the energy space in different fields. It's a matter of what you want to study or what your interests are, whether it's policy or business or in the finance space. So I think there's going to be huge opportunities in the energy sector in India in the future. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, anyone else? Okay.
There's another.
Neelam Kumari again. She wants to ask the question.
I'm going to again ask one question related to the achievement and honor. Like you said that you need to extra curriculum. So I have many things like football coach, workshop facilitator, and frisbee, and other leadership qualities. So how I will put, what thing I will highlighted in that application. Like I already asked to my teachers, like I have a lots of achievement, which one I will put in that list.
So like I said earlier, I think the one that you think you've achieved at the highest level goes first. And that's for the Common App, like the one that you feel like you've done the best in should be your top preference. But in your resume, I think listing out all the different achievements and honors that you've and accolades you've won, all of them can be listed. Just it's about ranking them in a certain order that is relevant to you and to your story, and what you think you've done well in the most should go first.
Okay, I think, yeah. So I think this is it now.
I think there's one last question.
Okay, there's a question. Okay. Yeah, let me see the question.
How to maintain balance between extracurriculars and academics, and how to prepare for essays. So I spoke about this briefly earlier, but the balance between academics and extracurriculars is tricky. It's not going to be 100% on one end and 100% on the other end. It's also not always going to be 50-50. You have to assess based on the time and the situation. If the student is in the 9th and 10th grade, it's okay to maybe emphasize extracurriculars a little bit more than academics. But if you're in 11th and 12th grade, focus on your academics. Those are more important. So you have to play that balancing game on your own, depending on your situation. And that is, that balance is important. And the second part of the question was, how do you prepare for your essays? So there's this process that I think it's important for everyone to kind of understand when you're writing an essay. A lot of time, students in India, they're not used to writing essays. Like, creative writing classes only existed in elementary school. We didn't have creative writing in middle school. We didn't have creative writing in high school. So students are not in the habit of writing. They're not in the habit of writing essays. So this is what I did when I, was starting to write my essays. There's this thing known as the downdraft. So it's when you take everything from your brain and put it down in a first draft. And it doesn't have to have any structure. It's just your thoughts, your ideas, all jumbled together. Everything in your brain, just put it down on a piece of paper. And then from that, you can start looking at ideas and patterns that will help you answer an essay question. Then you form a second draft, a more structured essay, actual essay based on that first downdraft, where you're just getting ideas out of your mind. And then you have someone review it. Then you go back with a third draft. Then you have someone else review it. Then you go back with a fourth draft. And you keep repeating that process until you've had multiple people look on it. Not too many, because too many cooks can spoil the broth. Not too many, but your trusted people, you have them take a look at those drafts, and you will reach a final place in that essay writing, journey, where you feel like this is it. This is a complete, polished essay, and this is a final for me. So that's kind of how you start preparing for essays. I would just say the first thing is just think and get your ideas out on a paper. Everything else can come after. You can structure your thoughts later, but getting your ideas out is the first most important thing.
I think there's one more question. Subodh Solanki. Good evening, ma'am. How is energy related to space? As the space changes, energy also changes. Thanks.
Energy related to space. Space as in outer space? I'm just trying to understand the question. Or location. I mean, I can try to answer this in a way that, if you think of India, like I said, a lot of the energy that we consume, the power is coal-based. It's a fossil fuel. City spaces and village spaces. So in India, like I said, a lot of the energy is coal-based, and in cities, it's a little bit more structured. There's the electric grid where the power comes through, but in other spaces like villages, it's very informal. So, I mean, those people are also consuming the same energy, right? They're using the coal fire burners to cook their food instead of having gas stoves in the cities. So energy is still required in both spaces, which is why I think there's a lot of opportunity in rural India to for climate tech startups to kind of go and explore and give them real tech-based energy solutions that they don't have to actually pay for, but are paid for by VC and, venture capital. And that's, the startup business. But I think there's opportunities in rural India for climate tech startups to kind of come in and build a real business solution for those people. And in cities, you'll have a different kind of business solution. There's a lot of congestion. There's a lot of pollution. Those are other kinds of energy and sustainability issues that are in cities that can be solved in a different way. So I hope that answered your question. I'm not sure if that's what you were going after.
Yeah, I think we've
Right.
done.
I think one more question.
Yeah, I think it's just really last question. I think you're also tired. It's just Saturday morning for you. I understand. I think this is the last question we'll be taking. Yeah.
All right. So it says, how do you cope with rigorous academic rigor? What advice would you give to freshmen? I think it's part of the journey, experiencing that rigor, experiencing how challenging your readings are in freshman year. It's part of the college experience. I would say you should build a habit of reading. There's a lot of reading you have to do in US universities and other colleges abroad. And you're reading original texts. Like, I had a philosophy class in my freshman fall, and I was, bombarded with these huge philosophical texts, original thinkers, Plato and all these. And I was a little overwhelmed because I'd never read something like that. But it was important that I was in the habit of reading from early on, and that I could actually, cope with reading those. And then there's a lot of other resources nowadays. You can use Sparks Notes, and there's, Chat GPT can help. I'm not endorsing that, but I'm just saying, do your readings, but also to understand your readings, you can use those resources to kind of synthesize that information. But on a more mental health kind of aspect, like I said, you need to have your support system. You need to have ways of coping with academic pressure and rigor. It's important that you have your people that you can talk to, or activities that you'd like to do, or go for a run, or play tennis, or listen to music, or go out to an art museum or something. Like, activities that can de-stress your mind and get you ready for the next day, because the work doesn't stop. The work keeps coming. Assignments are piling up by the hour. So you have to pace yourself. Some techniques I tell students is to time block their calendars. Like, put in your physical calendar that you're going to study this reading from X hour to X hour. And that's how you're able to kind of structure your day. And if you're doing a consistent effort throughout, I think you're at the end of the semester, when exams roll around, you're not as stressed about the material as you are, if you haven't really understood your readings from, the get-go. So there's different kinds of methods of coping with that, but part of the experience is going through that challenge and finding it difficult and kind of making your space in that.
Yeah, I think Ved sir and Shilpam wants to say something.
Yes.
Can I?
Yeah.
Sana, you have answered my first question very well. Thank you so very much. But I am tempted to ask another question. What special measures your university takes to promote the generic abilities amongst the students, apart from, the hard course content?
So the general ed classes?
Generic abilities, actually.
Generic abilities.
Yes. But special measures do they take? How do they integrate the promotion of the generic abilities, like the critical thinking, analytical ability, problem-solving abilities,
right,
in the course content?
So I think one of the ways they do it is you're asked to think about the why of everything. And that's kind of the foundation of critical thinking. If you're reading a text, it's not just reading the text and understanding what the author is saying. You're also forced or even urged to think about, why has the author said this? And they do that through their little discussion forums in your big classes. So if there's a huge lecture, they'll have smaller discussion classes in the week, and you kind of sit with a text and think of how it's written, why it's written, what was the idea behind writing it. And that's in a very small setting. They coach you almost to start critically thinking about texts that you're reading. In terms of problem solving, there's a lot of situations that arise within. I mean, if you think of like conflict resolution, for example, it's one of those things where you're in clubs and societies on campus. When you are in leadership positions in those places, they expect you to be able to deal with those situations on your own. There's no one going to tell you how to do things, right? Yes or no. But so that's kind of how they practice conflict resolution, or difference of opinions, and managing those different expectations in different group settings. And so there's different things that you can do within a university, where you can practice your generic abilities. There's also a huge emphasis on reading and writing. So one of the first things you do when you come to college is take reading classes. And for business school, we had a business writing class, and that specifically taught us how to do business style writing. So the curriculum itself has some elements where you are able to practice these skills, and then there are other life situations like being in clubs and other societies on campus that you're able to practice those things that you're learning on a very real everyday life level.
Okay, thank you very much.
Shilpa ma'am wanted to ask something.
Yeah. Do you have any club for environmental sustainability or green chemistry, or who is the professor who can guide on this?
There's a lot of clubs on campus at NYU that are focused on environmental sustainability. If you look at the website at NYU, there's a list of clubs, and you can identify which ones are focused towards sustainability. As well as the professors in the sustainability concentration. They're also listed on the website, and you can reach out to them if you have specific questions related to that. When I was at Stern, we didn't have a sustainability concentration fully developed yet. The year I graduated, they made it into its own fully fledged concentration. So I didn't actually get the opportunity to study sustainability, like I said, in college. It was just always part of our conversations with ESG and sustainable finance and CSR. So it was part of our general business conversation, but it wasn't its own separate concentration. But now they have it, and I think all the information is on the Stern website. You can look at the professors, you can look at what research they're doing, and there's also a list of clubs where you can sign up.
Can you name any professor? Like, then I can search for it.
I don't know professors off the top of my head. I'm so sorry. I'll also have to look back and check.
Thank you.
I think we'll end here, and thank you so much, Sana, for taking out time for us. And it was really great talk where you actually gave really good insightful information for all the students and also for the career path. Thank you so much, Sana.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for moderating. I know it's a Saturday evening and it's Diwali season, so I hope I know everyone's busy on the weekend. So first of all, happy to everyone in advance, and I want to really thank you for taking out the time to moderate our session today. I also want to thank the Blue Ocean team and Sanjay uncle for giving me the opportunity to come here and speak about my experiences. You've really seen my journey from when I was in Boston in middle school to Delhi to NYU to now. So he's been there since day one, I want to say. And also especially thank you to Ashita for keeping me on track with all the deliverables for this session. So thank you so much for following up with me. And I know I wasn't responsive all the time, but thank you so much for following up and checking in on me constantly. Hey, I need this. So I really appreciate that.